Right now, in this very moment, you have within you an incredible power. It's a force so potent, so transformative, that it can completely revolutionize your life. This power isn't something you need to acquire or learn. It's already there waiting to be unleashed. What is this extraordinary force? It's the power of action. Every single one of us possesses the ability to take decisive, purposeful action. Yet so often we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of hesitation, procrastination, and self-doubt. We dream big dreams, set ambitious goals, and make grand plans. But when it comes time to roll up our sleeves and do the work, we falter. We make excuses. We put things off. We tell ourselves we're not ready or that the timing isn't right. There will never be a perfect moment to start. There will always be reasons to wait, to hesitate, to put off until tomorrow what you know you should be doing today. The most successful, fulfilled people in this world aren't the ones who wait for ideal conditions. They're the ones who create those conditions through their own decisive action. Think about it. Every great achievement in human history, every breakthrough, every innovation, every positive change, it all started with someone deciding to take action. The Wright brothers didn't wait for the perfect day to test their flying machine. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't wait for racial injustice to solve itself. Marie Curie didn't wait for someone else to uncover the secrets of radioactivity. They saw what needed to be done, and they took action. Now, I'm not saying you need to change the course of human history, but I am saying that you have the power to change your own history. Starting right now, your life is a story, and you are both the author and the main character. Every day, you have the opportunity to write a new chapter to move your story forward. But that only happens when you pick up the pen and start writing, when you take action. So why do we so often find ourselves stuck, immobilized by fear or indecision? It's because taking action requires us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. It means stepping out of our comfort zone and it means risking failure, disappointment, and rejection. Those fears, those risks, they're the price of admission for a life well lived. They're the toll you pay on the road to success, fulfillment, and personal growth. And the beautiful thing is, the more you take action in spite of those fears, the less power they have over you. Every time you force yourself to take action, you're building a muscle. Not a physical muscle, but a mental and emotional one. You're strengthening your ability to overcome inertia, to push through resistance, to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. And just like a physical muscle, this action muscle grows stronger with use. So how do we build this action muscle? How do we train ourselves to be doers rather than dreamers, to be people of action rather than people of intention? It starts with understanding a fundamental truth. Motivation doesn't lead to action. Too often, we wait to feel motivated before we act. We think we need to be in the right mood to feel energized and inspired before we can tackle our goals. But that's backwards thinking. The reality is, action creates its own momentum. When you start moving, no matter how small the step, you generate energy. You create forward motion. And that motion, that energy, that's what motivation really is. Think about the last time you put off a task, dreading it, feeling unmotivated to start. Maybe it was a work project or cleaning out the garage or starting an exercise routine. Remember how you felt before you started? The reluctance, the procrastination, the excuses. Now think about how you felt once you finally got going. Once you took that first step, made that first bit of progress, didn't it get easier? Didn't you start to feel a sense of accomplishment, a desire to keep going? That's the power of action. It creates its own motivation, its own energy. It's like pushing a boulder down a hill. The hardest part is getting it moving, but once it starts rolling, it builds its own momentum. So the key is to start small. Don't wait until you feel ready to tackle the whole mountain. Just take one step, make one phone call, write one paragraph, clean one drawer, do one push-up. It doesn't matter how small the action is. What matters is that you're moving, you're doing something concrete and tangible to move yourself forward. And here's another crucial point. Don't wait for perfection. So often, we paralyze ourselves with the need to get everything just right before we begin. We tell ourselves we need more information, more resources, more time to plan. But perfection is the enemy of progress. It's better to take imperfect action than to wait endlessly for perfect conditions. Remember, you can always course correct along the way. In fact, that's one of the beautiful things about taking action. It provides you with real-world feedback. When you're just thinking about doing something, everything exists in the realm of theory. But when you actually do it, you learn. You discover what works and what doesn't. You gain insights that you never could have anticipated. And armed with that knowledge, you can adjust your approach, refine your strategy, and move forward more effectively. This is why successful people are often described as biased towards action. They understand that doing something, even if it's not the ideal thing, is almost always better than doing nothing. They know that motion beats meditation when it comes to achieving goals and making. Now, I'm not saying that planning and reflection aren't important. They absolutely are. But they need to be balanced with action. Think of it like breathing. You need to inhale and exhale. Planning and reflection are like inhaling. They give you fuel, they provide direction. But action is like exhaling. It's how you actually make use of that fuel, how you move in that direction. So how do we cultivate this bias towards action? How do we train ourselves to be doers rather than just thinkers or dreamers? It starts with recognizing that action is a choice. In any given moment, you have the power to decide to act. It might not feel like it sometimes. You might feel stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure. One powerful technique is to adopt a do-it-now mentality. When you notice yourself putting something off, challenge yourself to do it immediately. If it's a small task that will take less than 2 minutes, do it right away. If it's a larger task, commit to working on it for just 5 minutes. Often, you'll find that once you start, you'll want to keep going. Another effective strategy is to break larger tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Instead of being overwhelmed by the thought of writing a book, focus on writing 1 page. Instead of dreading a complete home renovation, start by breaking big goals into smaller actions. You make them less intimidating and more achievable. It's also crucial to recognize and challenge the excuses we make for inaction. I don't have time, I'm not ready, it's too hard. These are all just stories we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of taking action. When you catch yourself making these excuses, question them. Is it really true that you don't have time? Or are you just not prioritizing this task? Are you really not ready? Or are you just afraid to start? Remember, discomfort is not your enemy. It's a sign of growth. Every time you push through that discomfort, every time you take action despite your fears or doubts, you're expanding your comfort zone. You're proving to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And here's a powerful truth. Action builds confidence. The more you do, the more you believe you can do. It's a virtuous cycle. Each action you take, no matter how small, is evidence of your capability. It's proof that you can move forward, that you can create change in your life. Think about a time when you accomplished something you weren't sure you could do. Maybe it was running a marathon or learning a new skill or overcoming a personal challenge. How did you feel afterwards? Chances are you felt a surge of confidence, a sense of empowerment. That's the gift that action gives us. Not just the external results, but the internal growth, the expanded sense of what's possible. This is why it's so important to celebrate your actions, not just your outcomes. Too often we fixate on the end result and forget to acknowledge the courage and effort it took to get there. But every action you take is a victory in itself. Every time you choose to do instead of just dream, to act instead of just plan, that's something to be proud of. So I challenge you to start seeing yourself as a person of action. Regardless of your past habits, regardless of how many times you've procrastinated or given up before, you have the power to redefine yourself starting right now. You are not your past behavior. You are your present choices and your future actions. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you consistently took action towards your goals. If instead of just thinking about what you want to achieve, you actually took concrete steps every single day to make it happen. How would your life be different 6 months from now? A year from now? 5 years from now? The beautiful thing is you don't have to imagine. You can make it a reality. But it starts with a decision to be a person of action, to prioritize doing over dreaming, to choose progress over perfection. And here's the thing. This decision isn't a one-time event. It's a commitment you need to make every single day, sometimes every single hour. It's about consistently choosing action over inaction, movement over stagnation. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I take action and fail? What if I put in all this effort and don't get the results I want? These are valid concerns. But here's the truth. Failure is not the opposite of success. Every failure, every setback, every unsuccessful action is actually a stepping stone towards your goals. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall down countless times, but we don't call those falls failures, do we? We recognize them as an essential part of the learning process. Each time they fall, they're gathering data, strengthening their muscles, improving their balance. The same is true for any goal you're pursuing. Every action you take, whether it leads to immediate success or not, is moving you forward. In fact, the people who achieve the most in life are often those who failed the most. They're the ones who weren't afraid to take action, to try new things, to risk failure in pursuit of their dreams. They understand that the real failure isn't in falling down. It's in not getting back up and not trying again. So I urge you to reframe your thinking about failure. Instead of seeing it as something to be avoided at all costs, see it as valuable feedback. When you take action and things don't go as planned, ask yourself, how can I adjust my approach? What worked? Even if the overall outcome wasn't what I hoped for? This mindset shift from fearing failure to embracing it as a learning opportunity is incredibly liberating. It frees you to take bold action, to experiment, to push your boundaries, because when you're not paralyzed by the fear of failure, there's no limit to what you can achieve. Another common obstacle to taking action is perfectionism. We tell ourselves that we need to have everything figured out before we start, that we need to wait until conditions are perfect. But here's the truth. There's no such thing as perfect conditions. There will always be challenges, always be reasons to wait. The key is to start anyway, to take imperfect action. Remember, you can always adjust course as you go. In fact, that's one of the benefits of taking action. It provides you with real-world feedback that you can use to refine your approach. When you're just thinking about doing something, everything exists in the realm of theory. But when you actually do it, you gain practical insights that you never could have anticipated. This is why successful entrepreneurs often talk about the importance of failing fast. They understand that the quickest way to success is to take action, learn from the results, and then adjust accordingly. They don't wait until they have a perfect plan. They create a basic plan and then improve it through action and feedback. The same principle applies to personal growth and development. You don't need to have your entire life figured out before you start making positive changes. You don't need to know exactly how you're going to achieve your dreams before you take the first step. What you need is the courage to start, the willingness to learn as you go, and the persistence to keep moving forward. So I challenge you to adopt this mindset of imperfect action. Instead of waiting until you feel completely ready, ask yourself, what's one small step I can take right now? What's the simplest version of my goal that I can start working on today? Maybe you dream of writing a book, but you're intimidated by the scale of the project. Could you commit to writing just one page today? Or if you want to start a business, but you're overwhelmed by all the details, could you spend 30 minutes researching your market or brainstorming ideas? Remember, every great achievement starts with a single step. The Eiffel Tower was built one rivet at a time. The Great Wall of China was constructed one stone at a time. Your goals, your dreams, your ideal life, they'll be built one action at a time. And here's another powerful truth. So action breeds clarity. Often, we think we need to have everything figured out before we start. We want a clear roadmap, a detailed plan. But the reality is, clarity comes through action. As you start moving towards your goals, you'll gain insights and understanding that you never could have anticipated. Think about driving at night. Your headlights only illuminate the road immediately in front of you, but that's enough to get you to your destination. Taking action is like turning on your headlights. It might not show you the entire journey, but it'll show you the next step. And that's all you need to keep moving forward. So don't wait for perfect clarity before you act. Take action and let that action illuminate your path. Trust that as you move forward, the way will become clear. You'll encounter opportunities you never anticipated, discover strengths you didn't know you had, and find solutions to problems you couldn't have foreseen. Now, I want to address another common obstacle taking action: fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. No, these can all hold us back from pursuing our dreams and goals. But here's the thing: fear is not a stop sign. It's a sign that you're stretching yourself, that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's where growth happens. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Every goal you have, every dream you aspire to, achieving it will require you to confront your fears, to do things that scare you. So instead of letting fear paralyze you, use it as let it point you towards the actions that will lead to the most growth and progress. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Every time you take action despite your fears, you're building your courage muscle. You're proving to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And here's a powerful truth: action is the antidote to fear. The more you act, the less power fear has over you. Each time you face your fears and take action anyway, you're reprogramming your brain. You're teaching yourself that you can handle challenges, that you can overcome obstacles, that you're stronger than your fears. So I challenge you to make friends with your fear. When you feel that flutter of anxiety, that voice of doubt, recognize it for what it is: a sign that you're on the right track, that you're pushing yourself to grow. Thank your fear for trying to protect you, and then take action anyway. Now let's talk about the power of daily action. It's easy to get caught up in grand gestures, in trying to make massive changes all at once. But the truth is, sustainable change, real progress, it happens through consistent daily action. Think about building muscle. You don't get strong by lifting weights once a month. You build strength through regular, consistent exercise. The same principle applies to any goal you're pursuing. Whether you want to build a business, improve your relationships, or develop a new skill, it's the small daily actions that lead to big results over time. This is the power of compound effect. Just like compound interest can turn small savings into a fortune over time, small, consistent actions can lead to extraordinary results in your life. Each action you take builds on the ones before it, creating momentum and accelerating your progress. I encourage you to focus on daily action. Ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do every day to move towards my goals? Maybe it's spending 15 minutes learning a new skill, or making one sales call, or writing 500 words. Whatever it is, commit to doing it every single day. At first, it might not seem like you're making much progress. You might be tempted to give up, to think that these small actions aren't making a difference. But trust the process. Every action, no matter how small, is moving you forward. It's like planting seeds. You might not see results right away, but under the surface, incredible growth is happening. And here's the beautiful thing about daily action. It builds habits. When you consistently take action towards your goals, it becomes a part of who you are. So it's something you have to force yourself to do. It becomes a natural part of your routine, as automatic as brushing your teeth or eating breakfast. This is where real, lasting change happens. It's not about motivation or willpower. Those are finite resources that can be depleted. It's about creating habits, building systems that make taking action the default, rather than something you have to constantly push yourself. So how do we build these habits of action? It starts with making your desired actions as easy as possible to do. Want to exercise more? Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Want to write every day? Set up a dedicated writing space. Want to eat healthier? Stock your fridge with nutritious. The key is to reduce friction, to make the path of least resistance the one that leads to your desired action. Because here's the truth. We're all inherently lazy. We naturally gravitate towards what's easiest. So if you can make taking positive action easier than not taking action, you're setting yourself up. Another powerful strategy is to link your new actions to existing habits. This is called habit stacking. For example, if you want to start meditating, you might decide to do it right after you brush your teeth in the morning. By anchoring your new habit to an established one, you're more likely to remember to do it, and it feels more natural. And don't forget the power of environment. Your surroundings have a huge impact on your actions. If you want to read more, keep books visible and easily accessible. If you want to exercise more, create a dedicated workout space in your home. By shaping your environment to support your goals, you're making it easier to take consistent action. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from taking action. The need for motivation. We often think we need to feel motivated before we can act. We wait for inspiration to strike, for that perfect moment when we feel energized and ready to tackle our goals. But here's the truth. Motivation is a myth. At least the idea that motivation comes before action is a myth. The reality is motivation follows action. When you start moving, when you take that first step, that's when you start to feel motivated. Think about it like this. Have you ever had to force yourself to go to the gym, but once you got there and started working out, you felt great? That's because the action of exercising released endorphins gave you a sense of accomplishment and boosted your mood. The motivation came after you took action, not before. This is why waiting to feel motivated is a recipe for inaction. If you only act when you feel motivated, you'll never make consistent progress. Instead, you need to learn to act regardless of how you feel. This doesn't mean you'll always feel like taking action. There will be days when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you'd rather just relax on the couch. But those are the days when taking action is most important. Because every time you act despite not feeling like it, you're building your action muscle. You're strengthening your ability to do what needs to be done, regardless of your mood or circumstances. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you take action, the more motivated you'll feel. It's a virtuous cycle. Action leads to results. Results boost your confidence and enthusiasm, which in turn makes it easier to take more action. So instead of waiting for motivation, focus on building systems and habits that make taking action automatic. Set reminders, create routines, establish accountability. Make it so that taking action is just what you do, regardless of how. Now, let's talk about the role of mindset in taking action. Your beliefs about yourself and your capabilities have a huge impact on your ability to take consistent action. If you believe you're not capable, that you don't have what it takes, you're much less likely to take the actions necessary to achieve your goals. This is where the concept of a growth mindset comes in. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. It's the opposite of a fixed mindset, which believes that your qualities are set in stone. When you have a growth mindset, you see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. You're not afraid of failure because you know it's a necessary part of the learning process. You're more likely to take action to push yourself out of your comfort zone because you believe in your ability to improve and develop. So how do we cultivate a growth mindset? It starts with becoming aware of your self-talk. Pay attention to the stories you tell yourself. When you face a challenge, do you think I can't do this or I can't do this yet? That simple addition of yet can make a world of difference. It shifts your perspective from one of limitation to one of possibility. Another key aspect of a growth mindset is focusing on the process rather than just the outcome. Instead of fixating on whether you achieve your goal or not, pay attention to what you're learning along the way. Celebrate the effort you're putting in, the progress you're making, the skills you're developing. This focus on process over outcome makes it easier to take consistent action, because even if you don't achieve your desired result right away, you can still feel good about the work you're putting in, the habits you're building, the person you're becoming. I want you to really internalize this truth. You become what you do. Your actions shape your identity. If you consistently take action towards your goals, you'll start to see yourself as the kind of person who achieves their goals. If you regularly push yourself out of your comfort zone, you'll start to see yourself as courageous and adventurous. This is incredibly powerful because once you start to identify as a certain type of person, an athlete, an entrepreneur, a writer, taking the actions associated with that identity becomes easier. It's no longer about forcing yourself to do something. It's about being true to who you are. So I encourage you to start thinking about the person you want to become. What actions would that person take on a daily basis? How would they approach challenges? How would they spend their time? And then start taking those actions, making those choices, being that person. Remember, you don't have to feel like you fully embody that identity yet. You just have to act as if you do. Because the more you act like that person, the more you'll become that person. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the best possible way. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from taking action: perfectionism. We often think we need to have everything figured out before we start, that we need to wait until conditions are perfect. But here's the truthsism: is just fear in disguise. It's a way of protecting ourselves from potential failure or criticism. But if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll be waiting forever. There will always be more information you could gather, more skills you could develop, more resources you could acquire. At some point, you have to decide that what you have is enough to start. Remember, it's better to take imperfect action than to wait for perfect conditions, because imperfect action leads to feedback, and feedback leads to improvement. When you take action, even if it's not perfect, you learn, you gain insights that you never could have anticipated. You discover what works and what doesn't, and armed with that knowledge, you can adjust your approach and do better next time. This is why successful people often talk about the importance of failing fast. They understand that the quickest way to success is to take action, learn from the results, and then adjust accordingly. They don't wait until they have a perfect plan. They create a basic plan and then improve it through action and feedback. So I challenge you to embrace imperfect action. Instead of trying to get everything right from the start, focus on getting started. Ask yourself, what's the simplest version of my goal that I can start working on right now? What's one small step I can take today, even if it's not perfect? And remember, progress is better than perfection. It's better to take small, consistent steps forward than to remain stuck in place, waiting for the perfect moment to make a giant leap. Those small steps add up over time, creating momentum and leading to significant progress. Now let's talk about the power of decisive action. There's a big difference between taking action and taking decisive action. Decisive action is about making clear, firm decisions and then fully committing to them. It's about cutting off other options and focusing all your energy on your chosen path. This is important because one of the biggest obstacles to taking effective action is indecision. When we're constantly second-guessing ourselves, when we're always wondering if we've made the right choice, we dilute our efforts. We don't fully commit to any one course of action. And as a result, we don't make significant progress in any direction. Decisive action, on the other hand, allows you to channel all your energy and resources towards your chosen goal. It creates clarity and focus. It eliminates the mental clutter of constantly weighing options, and instead allows you to pour yourself fully into the task at hand. So how do we become more decisive? It starts with trusting yourself. Trust that you have the ability to handle whatever comes your way. Trust that, even if you make the wrong decision, you'll be able to learn from it and adjust course. It also involves accepting that there's rarely a perfect decision. In most cases, there are pros and cons to any choice. The key is to gather the best information you can in a reasonable amount of time, make a decision, and then commit to it fully. And here's a powerful truth. A good decision acted upon decisively is often better than a perfect decision acted upon hesitantly. Because when you act decisively, you create momentum. You start moving forward. And that movement creates opportunities and insights that you never could have anticipated when you were stuck in indecision. So I challenge you to practice decisive action. When you're faced with a decision, give yourself a reasonable time frame to gather information and weigh your options. Then make a choice and commit to it fully. Don't waste energy second-guessing yourself. Instead, pour that energy into making your chosen course of action successful. Now, I want to talk about the importance of accountability in taking consistent action. It's one thing to make a commitment to yourself, but it's another level entirely when you make that commitment public. When you tell others about your goals, when you have someone checking in on your progress, you're much more likely to follow through. This is why having an accountability partner or joining a mastermind group can be so powerful. When you know someone else is expecting you to take action, when you have to report on your progress regularly, it creates an extra layer of motivation. You're not just letting yourself down if you don't follow through. You're letting others down too. But accountability doesn't have to be about fear of letting others down. At its best, it's about support and encouragement. It's about having people in your corner who believe in you, who cheer you on, who help you problem solve when you face obstacles. So I encourage you to seek out accountability. Find a friend who's also working towards a goal and agree to check in with each other regularly. Join a group or community of like-minded individuals who are on a similar journey. Hire a coach who can provide guidance and hold you accountable. And remember, accountability is a two-way street. When you support others in their goals, when you hold them accountable, it strengthens your own resolve. It reinforces the importance of taking action in your own mind. Now let's address something that often holds people back from taking consistent action: the fear of criticism or judgment. We often hesitate to put ourselves out there, to take bold action towards our goals, because we're worried about what others might think or say. Criticism is inevitable when you're doing anything worthwhile. If you're pushing yourself, if you're trying to achieve something significant, there will always be people who don't understand, who doubt, who criticize. The key is to not let that criticism stop you from taking action. Remember, the people who criticize are rarely the ones who are out there doing great things themselves. As Theodore Roosevelt famously said, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. So I encourage you to see criticism as a sign that you're on the right track. If you're receiving criticism, it means you're taking action, you're putting yourself out there, you're doing something that matters. That's something to be proud of. The more action you take, the less power criticism has over you. When you're consistently moving forward, when you're focused on your goals and your progress, the opinions of others become less important. You become more resilient, more confident in your own path. So don't let the fear of criticism hold you back. Take action anyway. Put yourself out there. And remember, for every critic, there are likely many more people who are inspired by your actions, who respect your courage, who are cheering you on even if you can't hear them. Now, I want to talk about the importance of celebrating your actions, not just your outcomes. Too often, we fixate on the end result and forget to acknowledge the courage and effort it took to get there. But every action you take is a victory in itself. Every time you choose to do instead of just dream, to act instead of just plan, that's something to be proud of. By celebrating your actions, you're reinforcing the behavior you want to continue. You're training your brain to associate taking action with positive feelings, making it more likely that you'll continue to take action in the future. So I encourage you to find ways to celebrate your actions, no matter how small they might seem. Did you make that phone call you've been putting off? Celebrate it. Did you write for 15 minutes today? Celebrate it. Did you take a small step towards your goal? Celebrate it. These celebrations don't have to be big or elaborate. It could be as simple as taking a moment to acknowledge your effort, giving yourself a mental pat on the back, or sharing your progress with a supportive friend. The key is to consistently recognize and appreciate your actions. And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. By celebrating your actions, you're learning to enjoy the process, not just the outcome. You're finding fulfillment in the day-to-day work of pursuing your goals, not just in achieving them. Now, let's talk about the power of momentum. One of the beautiful things about taking consistent action is that it creates its own energy. Each action you take makes the next action easier. It's like pushing a boulder down a hill. The hardest part is getting it moving, but once it starts rolling, it builds its own momentum. This is why it's so important to start, even if you start small. Because once you're in motion, it's easier to stay in motion. Once you've taken that first step, the second step becomes easier, and the third step easier still. So focus on building momentum through consistent action. Don't worry if your actions seem small at first. What matters is that you're moving, that you're building the habit of taking action. Because those small actions repeated consistently over time add up to significant progress. And here's a powerful truth. Momentum is more important than motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. But momentum, once you've built it, can carry you through the times when motivation is low. So how do we build and maintain momentum? It starts with consistency. Try to take action towards your goals every single day, no matter how small. Even on days when you don't feel like it, do something. Because each day you take action, you're reinforcing the habit, you're building your momentum. It's also important to track your progress. Keep a record of the actions you're taking, the small wins you're achieving. This gives you a visual representation of your momentum, which can be incredibly motivating when you're facing challenges or feeling discouraged. And remember, momentum works both ways. Just as positive actions create positive momentum, inaction or negative actions can create negative momentum. This is why it's so important to guard against long periods of inaction. Even if you fall off track, get back to taking action as quickly as possible to maintain your positive momentum. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from taking consistent action. The fear of making mistakes. We often hesitate to act because we're afraid of doing the wrong thing, of messing up, of making a fool of ourselves. But mistakes are not your enemy. They're your teacher. Every mistake you make is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to refine your approach. In fact, the people who achieve the most in life are often those who've made the most mistakes. They're the ones who weren't afraid to try, to experiment, to risk failure in pursuit of their goals. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall down countless times. But we don't call those falls failures, do we? We recognize them as an essential part of the learning process. Each time they fall, they're gathering data, strengthening their muscles, improving their balance. The same is true for any goal you're pursuing. So I encourage you to reframe your thinking about mistakes. Instead of seeing them as something to be avoided at all costs, see them as valuable feedback. When you take action and things don't go as planned, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I adjust my approach? What worked? Even if the overall outcome wasn't what I hoped for, this mindset shift from fearing mistakes to embracing them as learning opportunities is incredibly liberating. It frees you to take bold action, to experiment, to push your boundaries, because when you're not paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes, there's no limit to what you can achieve. And remember, it's better to make mistakes while moving forward than to make no mistakes and remain stagnant, because even if you're making mistakes, you're gathering data, you're learning, you're growing, you're still making progress, even if it's not in a straight line. Now let's talk about the power of microactions. Often, when we think about taking action towards our goals, we imagine big, dramatic steps. But the reality is significant progress is often made through small, consistent actions taken over time. These microactions might seem insignificant on their own, but when accumulated, they can lead to... Think about writing a book. The thought of writing hundreds of pages can be overwhelming. But what if you committed to writing just 500 words a day? It might not seem like much, but over the course of a year, that's 182,500 words. More than enough for a full-length novel. This is the power of microactions. The beauty of microactions is that they're manageable and sustainable. They don't require huge amounts of time, energy, or willpower. They're small enough that you can do them even on your busiest days, even when you're not feeling particularly motivated. So I challenge you to identify microactions you can take towards your goals. Want to get in shape? Maybe your microaction is doing 10 push-ups every morning. Want to learn a new language? Perhaps it's learning one new word each day. Want to start a business? It could be spending 15 minutes daily researching your market. The key is to make these actions so small that they're almost impossible to say no to. Because once you take that small action, you'll often find that you want to do more. That 15 minutes of research might turn into those 10 push-ups might turn into a full workout. But even if they don't, you're still making progress, still moving forward. There's another powerful aspect of microactions. They help you build identity-based habits. Each time you take action, no matter how small, you're reinforcing your identity as someone who takes action, who pursues their goals, who follows through on their commitments. Over time, this identity becomes stronger, making it easier and more natural to take bigger actions. Now let's address a common obstacle to taking consistent action. Overwhelm. When we have big goals or multiple projects, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by everything we need to do. This feeling of overwhelm can paralyze us, preventing us from taking any action at all. The key to overcoming overwhelm is to break things down Take your big goal and break it into smaller, manageable tasks. Then focus on just one task at a time. Don't worry about everything else you need to do. Just concentrate on the task in front of you. This approach, often called chunking, not only makes your goal feel more achievable, but it also gives you a series of small wins along the way. Each completed task becomes a source of motivation, pushing you forward to the next. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. You just need to know the next step. Focus on that, take action on that, and trust that the step after that will become clear as you move forward. And speaking of moving forward, let's talk about the importance of forward momentum. Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to take the perfect action that we end up taking no action at all. But imperfect action is always better than perfect inaction. Think about driving a car. When you're moving, even if you're not going in exactly the right direction, you can adjust your course. But if you're standing still, no amount of turning the steering wheel will get you where you want to go. The same principle applies to achieving your goals. So focus on maintaining forward momentum. Even if you're not sure you're taking the best possible action, take action anyway. You can always adjust course as you go. What's important is that you're moving, you're gathering data, you're making progress. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from taking decisive action: the fear of commitment. We live in a world of endless options, and sometimes the thought of committing to one path, one goal, one course of action can feel scary. What if we make the wrong choice? What if something better comes along? But here's the truth. Commitment is not about limiting your options. It's about focusing your energy. When you fully commit to a course of action, you're able to pour all your resources, all your creativity, all your effort into making it successful. You're no longer wasting energy wondering what if or second-guessing your choices. And remember, commitment doesn't mean you can never change course. It just means that you're fully invested in your chosen path for as long as it makes sense. If circumstances change, if you gain new information that suggests a different direction would be better, you can always adjust. But in the meantime, your full commitment allows you to make the most progress possible. So I encourage you to practice the art of commitment. When you decide on a course of action, commit to it fully. Give it your all. Don't hold back out of fear or doubt, because it's through full commitment that we achieve our greatest successes. Now let's talk about the role of self-belief in taking action. Your beliefs about yourself and your capabilities have a huge impact on your ability to take consistent, effective action. If you don't believe you're capable of achieving your goals, you're much less likely to take the necessary actions to pursue them. This is where the concept of self-efficacy comes in. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplish a task. The higher your self-efficacy, the more likely you are to view difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than threats to be avoided. So how do we build self-efficacy? It starts with recognizing your past successes. Think about times when you've overcome challenges, when you've achieved goals, when you've learned new skills. These experiences are evidence of your capability. It's also important to surround yourself with positive role models. When you see others succeeding, especially people you can relate to, it strengthens your belief that you can succeed too. And of course, taking action itself builds self-efficacy. Each time you take action and see positive results, your belief in your ability to succeed grows stronger. It creates a positive cycle. Increased self-efficacy leads to more action, which leads to more success, which further increases self-efficacy. So I encourage you to actively work on building your self-belief. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small. Surround yourself with positive influences. And most importantly, keep taking action, because each action you take is proof of your capability, proof that you can do what you set your mind to. Now, I want to address a common misconception about taking action, the idea that it always has to feel good. The truth is, sometimes taking action feels great. You're energized, you're motivated, you're in the flow. But other times, it feels like a struggle. You're tired, you're discouraged, you'd rather be doing anything else. But here's the keyrings. Don't have to dictate your actions. You can choose to take action regardless of how you feel. In fact, some of the most important actions you'll ever take will be the ones you take when you don't feel like it. This is where discipline comes in. Discipline is the ability to take action regardless of your emotional state. It's what gets you out of bed early to work on your goals, even when you're tired. It's what keeps you going when motivation is low and obstacles seem. Discipline might not sound as exciting as passion or motivation, but it's far more reliable. Because while passion and motivation fluctuate, discipline is consistent. It's what carries you through the valleys between the peaks of motivation. So how do we develop discipline? It starts with creating systems and routines that support your goals. When you have a clear routine, when you know exactly what actions you need to take each day, it becomes easier to follow through regardless of how you feel. It also involves practicing delayed gratification. Train yourself to do what needs to be done now, even if it's uncomfortable, for the sake of a greater reward in the future. This ability to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain is a hallmark of successful people. And remember, discipline is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Each time you choose to take action despite not feeling like it, you're strengthening your discipline muscle. Now, let's talk about the importance of flexibility in taking action. While it's crucial to have clear goals and a solid plan, it's equally important to be adaptable. Because the reality is things rarely go exactly as planned. Circumstances change. New information comes to light. Unexpected obstacles. The key is to be committed to your goals, but flexible in your approach. Be willing to adjust your tactics, to try new strategies, to pivot when necessary. This flexibility allows you to keep moving forward even when your original plan isn't working out. Think of it like navigating a ship. You have a destination in mind, but you need to be ready to adjust your course based on the winds and currents you encounter along the way. Sometimes you might need to take a detour. Sometimes you might need to change your speed, but as long as you keep moving towards your ultimate goal, you're making progress. This flexibility also involves being open to new opportunities that arise as you take action. As sometimes as you work towards one goal, you discover new possibilities you never anticipated. Being flexible allows you to explore these opportunities, potentially leading you to even greater success than you initially imagined. So, while it's important to have a plan, don't become so attached to it that you miss out on new possibilities. Stay focused on your ultimate goal, but be open to adjusting your path as you go. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from taking bold action, the fear of success. It might sound counterintuitive, but many people are actually more afraid of succeeding than they are of failing. This fear of success can manifest in many ways. Maybe you're worried about the increased responsibility that comes with success. Maybe you're concerned about outgrowing your current relationships or social circle. Maybe you're afraid that if you achieve your goals, you'll have nothing left to strive for. But here's the truth, it's not an endpoint. It's a journey. Achieving one goal simply opens the door to new goals, new challenges, new opportunities for growth. And yes, success often does bring increased responsibility and changes in your life. But it also brings increased opportunities, increased resources, increased ability to make a positive impact in the world. So if you find yourself holding back from taking action because you're afraid of what success might bring, I encourage you to reframe your thinking. See success not as a final destination, but as a stepping stone to even greater achievements. Embrace the growth and change that comes with success, knowing that it's all part of your journey of becoming the best version of yourself. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to take action towards success. You'll grow into your success as you achieve it. You'll develop the skills, the mindset, the capacity to handle whatever success brings as you move towards it. Now, let's talk about the power of decisive action in the face of uncertainty. Often, we hesitate to take action because we're not sure of the outcome. We want guarantees. We want to know for certain that our actions will lead to the results we desire. But here's the reality. Certainty is an illusion. In life, there are no guarantees. Every action we take involves some level of risk, some degree of uncertainty. The most successful people aren't those who have eliminated uncertainty from their lives. They're the ones who have learned to take decisive action, despite uncertainty. In fact, uncertainty can be a powerful motivator for action. When you're uncertain about the outcome, taking action becomes a way of gathering information. Each action you take provides feedback, gives you data that you can use to refine your approach and make better decisions going forward. So instead of waiting for certainty before you act, use action as a way to create certainty. Take a step, see what happens, learn from the results, and then take another step. This approach, often called iterative action, allows you to make progress even when the path forward isn't entirely clear. And remember, indecision is a decision in itself, a decision to remain where you are, to not move forward. By choosing inaction, you're actually making a choice, and often it's not the choice that will lead you towards your goals. So I challenge you to embrace uncertainty. See it not as a barrier to action, but as an invitation to explore, to learn, to grow. Because it's in the face of uncertainty that we often make our greatest discoveries and achieve our most significant breakthroughs. Now, as we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this final thought. You have within you right now everything you need to take powerful, decisive action towards your goals. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment for more information, for someone else's permission. You have the power to act, and that power is available to you in this very moment. Every great achievement, every positive change, every step forward in human progress, it all started with someone deciding to take action. And now it's your turn. Your dreams, your goals, your vision for a better life and a better world, they're all waiting on the other side of action. So I challenge you right here, right now, to make a commitment to yourself, a commitment to be a person of action, to push past your fears, your doubts, your hesitations, to step boldly into the arena of life and give it everything you've got. When you commit to taking consistent, decisive action, you become unstoppable. You create a force of momentum that can carry you through any obstacle, any setback, any challenge. You become the author of your own life story, the creator of your own destiny. So go forth and take action. Start small if you need to, but start now and keep going, keep pushing forward, keep taking those steps day after day. Because with each action you take, you're not just moving closer to your goals. You're becoming the person you were always meant to be. Remember, the power is in your hands. The time is now. Your future is waiting. So take that first step, make that first move, take that decisive action, and watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought. You got this. Now go out there and make it happen. The world is waiting for your unique contribution, for the positive change that only you can bring. So take action and let your light shine bright. Your journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and that step starts now.